It's Friday, the 9th of October 2020, and this is the Friday Night Preview Show live on the Seasiders podcast. In tonight's show, we'll be looking ahead to Blackpool's game against Ipswich Town. We'll also have an insight into Pool's opponents from Craig at the Blue Monday podcast. And we'll also be hearing your thoughts ahead of the game at Bloomfield Road. I'm Sam Fielding, and this is a Seasiders podcast.
Varney's already changed the world. A small town from the north of England with a great tradition. Change the world.
Yes, good evening and welcome back to the Friday Night Preview Show live on the Seasiders podcast. It's great to have so many of you in the chat already. Make sure you leave your comments in regards to score predictions and join in the conversation because obviously we won't be here without you. We're going to start off the show by introducing one guest. We are meant to have two, but we are waiting to see if he can get away from a family gathering. I can't believe it, Tom. Can't believe it. But I am joined by Craig, who is an Ipswich Town fan and works for the Blue Monday podcast. Craig, great to have on the show. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, thanks for the invite. Strange times, but yeah, we're getting used to watching everything through a screen at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, how are you finding that in terms of watching a game on a TV or on your laptop? It's just completely different, isn't it? It's what we're used to for watching football for years gone by.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what your iFollow. Do you get iFollow or equivalent through your?
Yeah, iFollow. Yeah.
I don't know what your cameraman's like, but our cameraman, I think, spent a lot of time at sea because we're at sea all the time. He's wobbling around back and forth. I think people are suffering from motion sickness watching our home matches. So hopefully, whatever stream we get from you guys tomorrow be better.
Yeah, I think most Blackpool fans tend to have the opponent's commentary on. To be fair, so there's some issues. Not the cameraman. I don't think I could watch it if the cameraman was at sea all the time. But obviously, an Ipswich Town fan, Craig. We do this with all the live guests we get on the show and people we interview. Just give us a bit of a background on how you got supporting Ipswich and any memories or your earliest memory of going to an Ipswich game.
The earliest game I remember going to was in 1982, October 82. And it was Ipswich 6, West Brom 1, and John Walk scored 4 goals, which is probably why it sticks in the memory. I was about 7. I'd have been 7 at the time. And it was, I went through, my brother's father-in-law actually is a lifelong Ipswich fan and took me along, and it was textbook. It wasn't a milk crate, but it was a stool I took along with me to peer over the terraces sort of thing. So yeah, I pretty much started watching them just as they started to dismantle the team that was winning stuff in the late 70s, early 80s. We had our battles with Liverpool and Villa, Forest. When those guys were in their pomp, we were sort of in ours at the turn of the decade there. And I say, I started to watch it pretty much as we started to enter a rapid decline.
Yes, I'm probably similar to you. Got them watching Blackpool when they're on the up, winning promotion from League Two now up to the Premier League, and obviously under certain circumstances, it kind of went downhill. But like I said, UEFA Cup winners in 81, was it?
81, yeah. There's still sort of sticks in the craw of a lot of fans. Probably say 10 years older than me. So people who are in their mid-teens onwards, it sort of sticks in the craw a little bit that we went through the whole season using. Well, Villa ended up winning the league, going for the whole season using something like 14 players, something ridiculously short like that. Whereas we suffered a couple of injuries, and at the end of it, we just ran out of legs. We beat Villa twice, I think, that year in the league, and still lost to them. Came second or third in the league, and managed to get a UEFA Cup out of it when we should have, nearly pretty much won the treble if we had a half decent backup squad to the guys that were playing. Having to play week in, week out and slog themselves around on these pitches. Obviously, we had Sir Bobby in charge, and he went off to England after the 82 World Cup, and we made a couple of injudicious decisions regarding large stands, which then needed to be paid off. And to pay those off, we had to sell off the crown jewels of the team to pay for the stand. So it's a familiar story for a few teams, I think. But yeah, there was a few years of doldrums after that, knocking around what would have been Division 2, I suppose it was called, wasn't it, back then in the mid-80s. And then we had a bit of a renaissance under George Burley. Well, to be fair, we had a bit of renaissance under John Lyle, the old West Ham manager. He got us promoted to the original Premier League, the first year of the Premier League we were in. And then we got relegated, a bit like yourselves. You've been up and down, had a bit of a flirt with the Premier League, not too much, unfortunately. And then again had another one with George Burley for a couple of years up in the Premier League, and then we were stuck in the Championship for 16, 17 years, and seemed to be stuck in between like 10th and 13th in the Championship for 16 or 17 years. And then we fell through the trapdoor year before last.
Yeah, now from the glories of 81 winning the European Cup to now being in League One, and obviously not been in that division. Look, how have you found it, the Ipswich? Then they've been in, say, what season now, or 2 seasons going into it. Have you found it quite low standard, or do you think it's a league that they should be, well, not in really?
Yeah, well, the thing is with us is we were sort of, over a period of time, just by a period of osmosis, we were sort of dropping down the Championship year on year anyway, just through a lack of continual investment in the squad. And McCarthy kept us up and kept us fighting. We had 1 season in the playoffs with him, but even then, he wasn't really given any or much money to spend. And nowadays in the Championship, you need millions and millions just to tread water in the Championship now, don't you? You look at some of the salaries and some of the fees that are getting paid on players up there. It's pushing clubs down and down the leagues, or certainly clubs that aren't willing to take the risk and take the gamble. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because there's only 3 that are going up at the end of the day, and a lot more than that are spending the cash. So I think a lot of fans last year, certainly the way it started off up to November time, it was a lovely old time. It was we were top of the league, games in hand. We weren't playing particularly well, but the sort of strength of our squad got us through a lot of matches by virtue of just having better players, not necessarily playing better football. We were scraping victories and sort of relying on the other team, not necessarily putting away their chances. And then it sort of all completely turned on its head, and we went from promotion form to relegation form. And not only did we drop out of the automatic promotion spots, we dropped out of the playoffs and ended up 11th, 12th come COVID time. And during that period of time, Lambert signed a 5-year contract, and the form went through the window pretty much as the ink dried on his contract.
Yeah, we'll talk about that bit, because we were saying off air that when I went down there with Fleetwood, the atmosphere around the ground was very hostile and not an atmosphere that players or manager wants to be in, really. But we'll get to that bit. Obviously, mentioned at the start, you're kind of a podcast, the Blue Mondays podcast. Is it kind of a group you do that? A time for you to sell the podcast to any Ipswich fans who aren't too sure of what you do? Well,
any Ipswich fan who knows their stuff is already a dyed-in-the-wool fan of the Blue Monday podcast and a subscriber. I think we're into our 6th season now doing it. It started off with 2 of the guys, Ben and Dave, just started it themselves from a room and then from a studio. And over time, it's just expanded a bit. And there's now 3, 4, 5, 6 of us that do it. And we have similar to yourselves, really. We have a Monday. We record it on a Sunday, but a Monday morning podcast that sort of just goes over the weekend's result and bits and pieces. And then we have a midweek live stream, either after following a game, or if there's just a Q&A during the course of the week, and there's no football going on. So yeah, we're pretty well established in terms of the town fans, I think, in terms of the podcast to go to.
No, definitely, it's great stuff, and we'll tag the podcast in every post we do to obviously try and help you get a few more followers and all that stuff. Got a question here for you, actually, whether you'd be the right person to ask it, but Gareth White's asked, how has the salary cap impacted Ipswich, and do you agree with is it $2.5 million that clubs get? Yeah, well, it hasn't. Excuse me, it hasn't impacted us.
obviously the terms and conditions of it, sort of existing contracts don't count towards it, do they? So any players that we've got on, when you average it out, you're probably looking at, I think it's £2,500 a week, isn't it, on average for the players, sort of thing. Any players that we've got above that, Norwood, for example, is on more than that. The captain, Luke Chambers, will be on more than that. A couple of others, they obviously don't count towards it. What we have had discussions with on the Blue Monday podcast actually is, it's now not really worth selling any of your players. There's no benefit in selling your players because you're not going to be able to get a replacement for them. It's not as if, for example, earlier in the summer, or so over the course of the summer, early in the transfer window, our best player, Flynn Downs, was touted with a move to Palace, and they were rumoured to have bid £1.5 million, which wasn't a lot, and it was turned down. But even then, there was like discussions with the Ipswich fans saying, well, what is the point of accepting 2 million, 3 million, 4 million? Because you can't spend that money. You're going to, yes, you can spend the money on a fee, but what sort of player are you going to get in for £2,500 a week? I know it's a ridiculous thing to say, only £2,500 a week, but you can't go out and spend twice that on a £5,000 a week or £6,000 just to get yourself a proper higher level League One play. There's just no benefit now in selling those players on unless they kick up a stink and they have to leave.
Do you think clubs have been clever, probably like Ipswich and Blackpool in some respect, that they've done the business early before this rule was introduced? I think Blackpool bought quite a few players in on decent wages before it came in. I guess some clubs might have been clever and looked at that, where there's some clubs now trying to do business and struggling to bring in the players because, one, the money, and two, with the Premier League having, say, Champions League or European competitions to play, along with the cup competitions, there's so many games to play that the stars or the main 11 can't just play everything, can they? They've got to introduce these under 21s or under 23s in. Do you think that's having an effect as well on how teams are recruiting, especially in the lower leagues?
Yeah, very possibly. As you say, teams need a fairly decent size squad. Well, we need a fairly decent size squad ourselves with this Oxy EFL trophy that we're having to play on top of everything else. We very rarely have a cup run in any case, but even this year, I think most Town fans are of the opinion, well, we can probably bin off each and every cup we go into because it's such a condensed season in any case that that you can do without it. But in terms of the salary, I think what we did is we renewed a lot of our existing contracts before the deadline came round. If you see what I mean. So I can't think of the names, but a few of the youngsters we got on long-term deals before that deadline came round, if you like.
No, definitely will. It's an interesting debate, and I think one that fans can discuss for a long time. But we were meant to have, as I said before, Tom Main, who's been on the show before, and some of the Blackpool stuff I was going to relate to him. But we'll still go ahead with the plans of looking back through Blackpool's last game against Lincoln. If Blackpool fans aren't aware, they lost 3-2 at home to high-flying Lincoln. Again, we spoke last week about the defence and how they look shaky. And it looks like the Blackpool board have gone into the transfer market and brought in 2 centre-halves that will please Blackpool fans, that they've identified an area or a weakness in the side. But what I'm going to do is obviously people listening won't be able to see, but people watching, hear the highlights from Blackpool's defeat at home to Lincoln. I still look back at that and say that is awful defending from Blackpool, and hence the reason why the manager and I'm guessing the recruitment team have gone and signed 2 defenders there. Craig, I don't know how much you maybe watched the Blackpool's recent games in the build-up to this league tie, obviously brought forward with Blackpool meant to play Sunderland and the international weekends, but you see there, and we've seen recently, that Blackpool want to play high and really close teams down, a bit like your Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. How do you think they can really hurt Ipswich this weekend? Will they come out? Will your side come out kind of all guns blazing at the start and high press, or do you think Ipswich might come and sit back and allow Blackpool a bit of the ball?
Yeah, I think probably the latter. To be honest, what we don't have is an enormous amount of pace in the team. So any high press will be pretty pedestrian. When we've won our matches this season, the way we've sort of won it is just by sticking to our game plan, really, and playing possession football. A lot of it centres around Andre Dazelle. Jason, remember Jason Dazelle? It's his son that plays, and he sits pretty much in front of the back four, and they feed it to him. He acts like a quarterback role, really, and pings balls here and there. And he's quite happy to take it under pressure, and he takes it in small spaces. And he's a really lovely football. He's left-footed as well, which helps, in terms of aesthetically pleasing on the eye. So what happened last week is we played Milton Keynes, and they had a lot of the ball. I think near enough 70% possession in the second half, albeit we were down to 10 men through an injury rather than a red card for the last half hour. So I don't think we will be pressing you as much as Lincoln were there, because I don't simply think we've got the players and the pace to really allow us to do it. I say what our strength is really our central midfield 3, and that's where most of our, to be fair, most of our play emanates from, and also most of our goals. Our centre forward hasn't yet scored a goal, but our wide players have, and so have our centre midfielders. Knowing Blackpool, he'll end up getting his first goals or goal at the weekend, won't he? So in terms of your centre halves, then obviously they're being told to play out from the back, but they didn't look particularly well skilled in being able to play out from the back. And it's something that we've had ourselves. Is when Lambert joined, we went to the extreme in terms of centre back splitting, and the goalkeeper literally knocking it 2 or 3 yards to. And these guys, are defenders first and foremost. They're not Franco Baresi or Franz Beckenbauer back there. They're League One defenders. Certainly this year, they're League One defenders for a reason. So we've sort of come to a style of play which doesn't involve quite to the extreme as what it looked like you guys were doing there at the weekend.
Again, in pre-season, leaked a few goals against Liverpool and Everton, the games I watched especially. But on the attack, we looked so dangerous. At the start, it was all get at them and really put pressure on the defenders and keep when they've got the ball. And as you can see, that's where the first goals come from. But when you're trying to play out from the back and you've got, to me, and I know people disagree with my opinions, and I understand, but when you've got players who haven't played at League One level or haven't been looking on the promotion side of things in their career, you always wonder, can they fit that system, or can they fit, I want to say, the Liverpool style of play, which obviously Critchley is trying to do with his former club. But I think what he's done now is gone into the market. Daniel Gretterson, an Icelandic centre-back who's had international, I think he's played 1 game for Iceland experience. And then a young player from Arsenal, Ballard he's called. I think he's played more international games than he has league games, so it's a good start. But again, these players that Critchley knows from his time maybe at Liverpool and where he's scouted abroad. But you've got to have players who are able to bring the ball out from the back. And unfortunately, the 2 players who were the 2 centre halves last week weren't up to the mark, and you ultimately saw them struggle and have mistakes. And we know from watching this league that if you've got a mistake in your team, you end up causing yourself teams problems. So it's great that he's gone into the market and signed these players. Whether they're fit enough to be involved on Saturday, I'm not too sure. But Again, it's good.
It's unfair on the players themselves, isn't it, to a certain extent, that you're trying to force this style of play on them when they patently can't. They're not skilled enough to. By my eyes, just there, they're not skilled enough to do it. We had it a little bit when we were in the Championship, as I say, when Lambert took over and we went to this extreme play out from the back. Our goalkeeper struggled. Biakowski is now at Millwall. He was our player of the season for 3 years running, and he's been Millwall's player of the season since he went to Millwall. But one thing he couldn't do, bless him, was particularly play out from the back, which is what we were trying to demand him to do, and it just didn't fit the players. It's all very well having an ethos and a style of play that you want to get doing, but you can't. Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't do it immediately with the tools you've got. So I'd be interested to see what I say, because we've got ourselves got a centre back in from Arsenal on loan, but he hasn't played as yet. He's been in. He's only been with us for a couple of weeks.
I agree with you there in terms of, and I believe they need time. But when you can clearly see a player isn't used to playing out from the back or looks nervous on the ball every time he gets it, you need to rectify that as a manager. And for me, Critchley's still learning to have this ruthlessness to his side, where at Liverpool it's about developing players and get them into the first team, where now it's about results as well.
Yeah.
So it's a learning curve. With Blackpool fans have been in worse situations in terms of club and not going to the games and not really caring about results, to in the last 12 months or so really been interested. So it's a new learning curve of Blackpool fans who have stuck to the guns and not gone to games. But I'm a firm believer that we need to be patient and give players time. But when it's obvious that someone can't do it, I'm sorry, they've got to go. And unfortunately, the player we're on about has gone to Accrington today on a 3-year deal.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Nottingham, yeah.
Do you think you've actually benefited into a certain extent by the crowd not being there and not getting edgy and getting on the, not necessarily getting on the backs of the players, but players will just pick up on an edginess. We got it as soon as you knock the ball out to one of our guys who'll be playing tomorrow, Toto Nsiala, and he came from Shrewsbury, so he'd been like League One his career. I think he might have been in the League One team of the season when we bought him, but in the Championship he looked like a fish out of water, and his confidence just got completely shot to pieces, because all he is predominantly is a stopper, and he'll throw himself in the way of balls, and he'll header everything clear. As long as it's in the air, he'll go and he'll go through players to get the ball, and he'll chuck himself in the way of it. You give the ball to him within the 18-yard box, and everyone's just saying, "Christ, here we go." There's a mistake waiting to happen. And if he's got 20,000 people around him, he'll pick up on that, and it'll probably get worse and worse and worse and worse. So I just wonder if he, to be fair to him, in regards to us, he's been one of our better players this year, and there's a train of thought. It's because there's no crowd there to not necessarily get on his back, but he'll pick up on the negative vibes that are just surrounding.
Yeah, if listeners are watching or viewers are watching, leave your comments on what you think the players suit not having fans in the back. Do leave them in and we'll get them on the screen. But from my point of view, I think a bit of both. I think if you're an attacking player and you've got the pace and excitement, which we've all seen from Blackpool in pre-season, you want to go and witness that, and you want to see these players score goals and show off the flair and whatnot. But on the flip side of it, I think if you're a defender and you mess up, or a red card like last weekend, or a mistake, that you can easily shielding the ball out for a goal kick and you touch it with your big toe, fans will get on your back. So for me, I see both sides of it. I think in terms of some players will relish fans being in the ground. Some, when it's not going great, will enjoy the peace of 17,000 tangerine seats, shall we say, on the home games. But
you guys got into a game, didn't you, early in the season? Weren't you one of the few games that teams that got supporters in?
It was for the Swindon game, I believe. I wasn't one of the 1,000 that got there, but I'm sure some of the listeners a few of them went to the games and they enjoyed it. The atmosphere on the iFollow was great. Full credit to the fans that went. And I think the players thrived off that they've not seen fans in, I'll say not a game because it all cancelled with lockdown, but they've not had them in the ground for pre-season games. For the Liverpool game would have been a sellout at Anfield, you would have thought. Everton would have been 10,000 maybe for a pre-season due to the circumstances in terms of not going to a game. So, yeah, I think it was great that fans are in there. And I'm just ashamed the government are reserved on letting fans in when you can go to the cinema and be in a room with so many people, and you can't go in the fresh air in a football stadium and cheer on a football team. That's another story, isn't it? I guess we can go for hours.
Quite. Yeah, you can go to the pub and watch the match on the telly. And amongst a load of people and cheek to jowl, as you say, rather than out in the fresh air and 25% full stadium.
Yeah, definitely. Again, Gareth, leaving a comment. I think we are massively missing the fans at Bloomfield. Neil Critchley said the same today in his interview, and we'll get to Neil Critchley's interview very shortly. A question here, correct? Well, a bit of a Q&A again. Does Craig remember when Blackpool dismantled Ipswich 6-1 in the early 2010? And I think it was 2011 or 12.
So that was probably around Paul Jewell's time. So that wasn't a particularly unique experience, to be perfectly honest. Back then, Paul Jewell wasn't the greatest. We got beat. I think it's either 6-1 or 6-0 by you guys, and then we also got done 7-1 by Peterborough. That was live on Sky, so that was enjoyable. It wasn't a unique experience to get gubbed by people when Paul Jewell was in charge. That was a short-lived affair.
No, definitely. What we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit more about Ipswich, and we'll talk about Blackpool's signings as well. But sorry, I've got Matt's name right. It's not Matt. It's Craig. Obviously, games now, you've won a few. It was a draw last weekend. How would you assess your form in terms of how you've started off the campaign? Very similar to last season in terms of results and position. But how have you seen your side so far this year?
Yeah, they've started off well. I think people were pretty intrigued as to see how we'd start off because, as I was saying earlier, our form fell off a cliff pretty much around after November, after we'd been up to Fleetwood, actually, your neck of the woods, and won 1-0. We were top of the league, I think three or 4 points clear of third with 2 or 3 games in hand, and that was November time. And as I said, our form fell off a cliff after that, and by the time we got around to playing you guys at home, I'm talking about Fleetwood now. Playing Fleetwood at home, you were saying, you were referencing earlier about the atmosphere. It was pretty poor, and as I said, though, Lambert had signed a 5-year contract in January or around about Christmas, New Year time, so he wasn't probably going to go anywhere. So he was just given time. I think. We sort of think that COVID may have saved his job, because the way things were going, our form and our league position was only going one way when things got called to a halt. So it probably saved him in that respect. But then we didn't have a great pre-season, although to be fair, we played Premier League teams, local Premier League teams, West Ham and Tottenham. So it's difficult to really judge how you're getting on against these guys. But we started off well. We won 3 games 2-0, and then drew last week. And it's been as I said before, we sort of stick to our game plan in playing through the central 3. We suffered a little bit from injuries, as we seem to do all the time. No, Norwood's, although he hasn't pulled up any trees recently, he was in effect our key man, our key striker. Although fitness-wise, he hasn't been around for a while. I said about Flynn Downs earlier, had a bid in from Palace. He's now injured for 2 or 3 months. Our right back we got from Colchester, we haven't seen him for a year. Kane Vincent-Young, and he was absolutely flying when he got injured. We just seem to have a bit of an injury crisis most weeks and most seasons, and invariably it's our better players that we don't seem to see for a while, which is why we got a rather bloated squad, but we're needing to use most of it appears, and we're only 4 or 5 games into the season. So I say we do predominantly use the central 3. We've got Andre Dezo, who sits in front of the back 4 and sort of sprays it around and keeps it nice and tidy, but he's also very progressive with the ball. He plays some very nice intricate passes. Whether Teddy Bishop will play tomorrow, we're not entirely sure. He's more of like a jink. He'll jink around with the ball in central midfield and take players on and get forward. And then he's got John Nolan, he was again in the League One team this season. Also played with Enciala at Shrewsbury, and he's more of a box-to-box footballer. And Bishop and Nolan have both got a couple of goals each this year. Our wide players have got Freddie Sears, who used to play for West Ham. He's been playing wide, and Gwion Edwards, who was at Peterborough in League One. He's been playing wide, and they've both got a couple of goals as well themselves. And our central striker is, we got during the summer, Ollie Hawkins from Portsmouth, who's 6'4", 6'5". And when he signed, the Portsmouth fans said, well, he's not going to score a lot of goals for you, but what he will do is he'll allow everyone else to join him, sort of thing. He'll hold the ball up, he'll lay it off, he'll allow the guys around him to play. And that's, to be fair, that's exactly what has happened this year so far. But I say the issue being is that he's the only one person we've got in our squad that can now play that role, because, as I say, Norwood's now out for 2 or 3 months. And one of the youngsters that we started the season with, he also got injured, poor sod, and is out for a similar amount of time. So, our bloated squad's sort of down to bare bones in certain areas of the pitch. But I say it's very much centred around that central striker, and then getting the wide players and the 2 centre midfielders to get in and around and join him.
It's amazing how players have different roles and responsibilities. Like Norwood's someone who is going to cause havoc in the back 4, back 3, isn't he? And I've watched him a few times, and again, Hawkins is probably a similar type, going to put his body around and make it difficult. And then, like I said, when the game's towards the end, you've hopefully got players to come on and make a difference. And having watched Ipswich last season twice, and I think I watched them against Wigan on the opening day of the season, Wigan?
Yeah.
At home. Yeah, I've watched that game, and I thought that the dangerous here, and they've got players who can change a game and come off the bench. So it's going to be tough for Blackpool, I think, tomorrow.
What you have noticed is that, as I said about the squad, our bench, invariably most weeks does look ridiculously strong, but it's just a question of, the manager getting the most out of it. We've got Alan Judge, who was at Brentford for a long time and he was playing for Republic of Ireland last season. But he hasn't really fired for us at all since he's joined us. He's obviously a really, really good footballer, but for some reason it just hasn't quite clicked for him. But we've got Emir Hughes, who was at Man City and Cardiff. He was on the bench as well. You look at our bench. Norwood was on the bench last week, but obviously he won't be this week. It'll be Caden Jackson, I think, who's got pace to burn, but he can't really play that central striker role. It would need to rejig it around. But I wouldn't be surprised if, as you say, depending on how the game's going, that we do normally have quite a strong bench to look to.
Obviously, Blackpool played Lincoln last week, and like Lincoln, Ipswich have only conceded 1 goal in the league and scored 7 in the process. That's quite a good ratio, isn't it, to have in terms of goals to against for your side? Yeah,
well, last week we conceded our first goal last week, and to be fair, as I said earlier about NCR, we're probably playing the 2 centre halves that are currently playing. We've got Toto Enciala and James Wilson. And James Wilson we got on a free from Lincoln last year. And they're probably our 3rd and 4th choice centre halves. Arguably, our first choice centre halves are Luke Chambers, the captain, who's currently playing right back, because we don't have a right back, and Luke Wolfenden, who's a young centre half, more of a cultured centre half, really, that can actually play out from the back. But he got injured pre-season and is on the bench. So, what Lambert said last year, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. From week to week, we didn't know what formation we'd be playing. We didn't know who the hell would be playing in that formation. Regardless of how well or badly people had done, they were in and out the team. Very rarely, if ever, did we play the same. Well, crikey, probably not the same 8 players, let alone the same 11 players week on week. Whereas now he's completely turned that on its head, and it's the same players. Yeah, if you're in the team and you're doing well and the team's winning, we're not changing it. Which is, you can't. At least you know where you stand as a player. You know where if you're performing, you're going to be playing each week. So Wolfenden's had to bide his time and still is biding his time. He's, I say, probably going to be on the bench tomorrow. And as I said about the central defenders, they're stoppers. Yeah, you won't see much walking out the back from the back with the ball, but you will see them, winning headers and throwing themselves in the way of the ball and making tackles and the sort of stuff you probably do need to do in League One to stop opposing attack. What we probably lack is just a bit of bite in that central midfield. I was bigging up the 3 players I've got in there, and they're all very good footballers, but what they don't really have between them is much of a nasty streak, which is what Flynn Downs does have. He's a bit of a beast in there, even though he's 20, 21 years old. He's yeah, he's a decent. Destroy is not the right word, but you know what I mean. He can get stuck in the middle there, whereas you might be able to get in and around us there. I would have thought, just if you disrupt our central midfield, then you're in with a chance.
Fingers crossed Blackpool's midfielders can do that tomorrow. What we're going to do is have a quick look at the highlights from Ipswich's last game in the league, which was against MK Dons. And as we said before, that finished 1-1. Yeah, they're the short highlights from the game at the MK Stadium, or whatever it's called. I always get mixed up, to be fair. But looking at that, Craig, similar to Blackpool, I think when you're looking at highlights, just seems to be ball watching some defenders, thinking that no one's around me, and next minute, someone pops up the back post, and ultimately that's what cost you another 3 points in the league.
Yeah. What you notice, and say what's probably been highlighted by your scouts, is our. During the summer, we got in Stephen Ward, the Irish fullback who played for a lot for Burnley in the Premier League, and then he went to Stoke, and we got him in, and he's been really, really good. He's exactly as you'd imagine, a 35-year-old fullback to be. He's just solid, knows what he's doing when he gets the ball, knows when to get forward, knows when to ease a player off the ball. He's just a nice calming influence. But he got injured last week. Well. In the first half, and as a result, we had to bring on our backup fullback, Miles Kenlock, and he's a serious downgrade on Stephen Ward, and that's where that goal came from last week. And I would imagine, if your scouts have got anything about them, they'll be focusing you'll be focusing a lot of your attacks down our right, down our left, down your right. I'd have thought.
But that's where our danger man is, Hamilton. So hopefully he can use his pace. I want that to play against him, to be fair. Very quick on the mark, and if your defender gives him 5 yards, he'll make that up within a few seconds. So it could be a very interesting battle down the right-hand side for Blackpool tomorrow. News came out this week that Paul Lambert received the first League One Manager of the Month accolade. Great return. Many managers could have won it, with Lincoln's as well up there and a few others. How would you kind of assess him as a manager? Because we did briefly speak about it in terms of the hostility inside the ground last season when things weren't going right. And I've got a few questions about the manager anyway. But do you think it's a fair point that he's won this award? And do you think it could be the trick, the curse that managers win this and lose the next game?
Well, I think he probably did deserve it on the back of, well, as you say, it's probably one of three, wasn't it? On the back of September alone, because obviously last week's game was in October, so it didn't count towards it. So, the September results were 3-2-0 victory. So, you can't really ask for more than that. Going on to Lambert and how he's looked at by Town fans. When he came in on the back of a very short manager, Paul Hurst, but a very short a very short tenure for a manager as well. He was only there till October, I think. Having joined over the course of the summer, and that came on from Mick McCarthy. And crikey, the last year or two of McCarthy was, in terms of relationship between fans and manager, it was gone. It was shot. For all his good points, McCarthy's a stubborn bugger, and yeah, it was very much turned on its head in terms of the relationship from fans to manager. And what Lambert did when he came in is he turned that round completely. He got the crowd on side. He said all the right things. He invited all the legends to the training ground and for lunch, and putting money behind the bar and paying for coaches to away matches and stuff, and really got the fans on side. And even though we got relegated with a whimper, we didn't put up a fight whatsoever. Lambert joined in, let's say, October, November,
Mm-hmm.
and we were still with a chance of staying up, but as they went down with not even much of a fight, the crowd were fully behind him, and we're quite probably not looking forward isn't the right phrase, but looking forward to a season in League One with him at the helm. But the results and the performances last year, just to say, did enough to, when you say you were at the Fleetwood home match, it was pretty poor, and just the atmosphere wasn't great. But he's still there, and people in Suffolk, it's not renowned for their vitriol towards anyone really, particularly away fans or away players or away managers, let alone your own manager. So they're willing to give him another shot at it, I think, and certainly the start of the season has helped.
You would have seen on the screen just then, Steve H says, do you wish Mick McCarthy had stayed on as manager? I believe that Town fans gave him a hard time. I'll put the comment back on there, but I'll let you reflect on what's been asked there.
I think, to be honest, it was time he went. Yeah, it could probably have been handled better in terms of the way it happened, and that's probably on both sides, from the fans and from McCarthy himself. I don't think he's much for apologising, McCarthy, and it got to the point where we went to Norwich. It was live on Sky, and we went 1-0 up with about 5 minutes to go, and McCarthy was seen on telly telling the away fans to cough and giving them the bird. So that didn't go down particularly well. And so I think to be fair, that it had just run its course. When he joined, it was he kept us up. And just made us very, very, very difficult to beat. Exactly as you would expect from a Mick McCarthy team. There was no frills really. It was just a very solid team, and the fans liked that. And it was producing results. And we had a season where Daryl Murphy got nigh on 30 goals, and we got into the playoffs. Lost to Norwich, obviously, and that was sort of our one season. And from then on, it just. And as I say, it's not. Don't get me wrong. If McCarthy had been given a bit of cash, he's bringing in £8 million for Tyrone Mings, having spent £8,000 on him, and which he's more than willing to tell everyone that will listen. But had a fraction of that being given back to him to reinvest, there's no reason to think that he might not have been able to do it again and just build a team, rather than just constantly living on scraps, freebies and things like that. That he may have done a better job. I just think, in terms of the relationship, he'd just sort of run its course. He'd been there, I don't know, 5-6 years, whatever it was, and people were just a little bit tired of the football they were witnessing. Some of the matches, certainly at home, were a real struggle to watch. We were going matches without having shots on target, let alone goals at home. As I say, I think it just run its natural course, but probably could have been handled better by all parties. And obviously, subsequently, it's not necessarily McCarthy leaving; it's the appointments we made subsequent to that probably led us to where we are now.
A good point you actually bring up there about fans being fed up of the way of playing. What are your thoughts on? I've used Blackpool for example. Love to play attacking football, but might have the odd mistake in them. Play that way that if you score 3, we'll score 4 goals. But fans are entertained, but you maybe not getting the results compared to a side, say Ipswich back then, who were maybe having 1 shot on target but winning the game 1-0. Where do you sit in terms of being a fan? Would you rather be entertained, or would you rather have the results? It's an interesting topic, really, because at the end of the day, results are important, but as fans, you want to be entertained because you're spending £20 a weekend watching your team.
And that's exactly where we found ourselves. That's exactly where we found ourselves when McCarthy was in charge. The grass isn't always greener. Be careful what you wish for, whatever you want to say. The thing is, as a football fan, you've got to have hope, haven't you? You've got to aspire that there is something better out there. And that, I think that was all Ipswich's fans wanted at the time. Was okay. We've tried it with McCarthy. We've tried it with this pragmatic style of football. It's worked to a certain extent in that we've got another season in the Championship, but what's wrong with hoping for better? I appreciate it hasn't worked since, but that's not the fans' fault for hoping that the next manager coming in could have turned it around. I'm trying to think who was on the shortlist for the managers. I think Scott Parker was on the shortlist at the time, and we certainly spoke to Frank Lampard at the time, believe it or not. But I'm sure when Frank Lampard looked at Derby County's bank balance and then looked at Ipswich Town's bank balance, it wasn't a particularly difficult choice to make. But you just never know. We were pretty much had it narrowed down to two. It was Jack Ross, who ended up going to Sunderland momentarily. He's now back in Scotland again, and Paul Hurst. And it's always just in the back of my head is that sliding doors moment that had we appointed Jack Ross instead of Paul Hurst, who knows? But we are where we are now.
One quick question from Mick. He said, "What's Ipswich's fascination with tractors?" I don't know if it's a joke or you can enlighten us on that one. I'm quite intrigued to know.
Has Mick not been to Suffolk?
Mick, have you been to Suffolk? Leave a comment in the section. I'm guessing he has.
It's just I'd imagine proportionally speaking, there's more tractors per square mile in this area of the country than there probably is in your area of the country.
There we go, Mick. There's your answer, short and sweet. What we're going to do is play a little snippet from Paul Lambert's interview ahead of this game. But if you're not already subscribing to the Seasiders podcast on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and you'll be made alert of all new shows coming on. And also follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up with all the action and all the news going on regarding podcast and when they're going to happen as well. But here's what Paul Lambert had to say ahead of the game at Blackpool.
Congratulations on winning the September League One Manager of the Month. How do you feel?
I said the last year as well.
Oh, sorry, I clicked that one. Back to it.
Congratulations on winning the September League One Manager of the Month. How do you feel?
I said the last year as well. It's like a joint big effort for the staff, for the players. Without the players and staff, you don't really get anything like that. So big thanks to them. For me, yeah, it's really, really nice, but also to the staff and the players.
Does it give you, not that you need that confidence, but a nice little sort of pat on the back for everyone, and it shows everyone that moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think that's the accolade it brings really for everybody, not just for myself. Okay, I'm at the forefront of it, but without the staff and without the players, everybody pulling together, then these sort of things tend not to come round too often. So no, it's a big thanks for everybody.
3 wins from 3, of course, and then a draw at Milton Keynes at the weekend. So that's a good start to the season. You'd take that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we've started really well. We've only conceded 1 goal. We're playing ever so well. So I'm really happy where we're at.
Are you hoping that the lads will, Milton Keynes, they did enjoy a lot of the ball down there, sorry. Are you hoping that you're more on the front foot at the weekend?
Yeah, but we as I said before, I thought we were slopping a lot of stuff. We started the game well last week. We got a good goal. And then I think Freddie had a good chance to make it 2-0. And then I thought we never really imposed ourselves on that side. So second half was a bit of a non-event because of 10 men for half an hour. But for different reasons, it was a huge point because we defended really strongly. So but hopefully we can go and have a good game Saturday and try and win.
Yeah, they're the thoughts from Lambert there ahead of the game this weekend. When you listen to those comments, Craig, kind of a manager that's quite reserved, doesn't really say too much, but he's obviously going to go up north this weekend with a game plan and hopefully at minimum get a point, if not steal all 3 points.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's, as I said before, we've on paper we've got a decent enough squad to do that. But as I say, last week's performance, certainly, probably before we went down to 10 men because of the injury, was contrary to the performances we'd had in the previous league matches. Sorry, we didn't have, as was referred to there, we didn't have as much possession of the ball. For some reason, we just didn't get into the game. So I think what a lot of fans are just interested to see is this weekend is whether last week was just the blip and we'll be back to as we were beforehand, or whether last week was the start of things taking a turn, for the worst sort of thing. So yeah, I think we're looking forward to it with a bit of intrigue, to be honest.
Definitely. Mick's got back in touch, Craig, as you're delighted to. He said, fair dues, but the story about the tractors is a tad boring. But no, that's all it is, isn't it? Just due to more tractors being in the Suffolk and Ipswich.
Yeah, I could try and sex it up if you like, but that's what it is, unfortunately.
Mick, I'll give you his number afterwards, and if you want that request, you can do. We've got a comment in here. Obviously, we talking about Ipswich and the way they play. Gareth says, bad day I fear tomorrow, Blackpool 0, Ipswich 2, set pieces, could be our downfall. Again, when I've seen Ipswich, especially last year, I can't comment on the squad this year, but a very strong and physical side, tall players in there, and they're not afraid of a fight, are they? And I'm guessing that's probably a similar style and players that Lambert's brought in this year to go and win battles. And
yeah, well, as I say, we've got Hawkins up front, who's he's tall, he's a bit of a unit up front in the middle there, but we've probably got more of a slender setup behind him. To be fair, in terms of the two wide guys, Sears and Edwards, they're pretty slight fellas, and then the midfield three are all, well, two of the midfield three are made from porcelain in terms of Bishop and Dazelle. We've all got our fingers crossed each time they go in for a tackle that they're not going to come out broken in half, sort of thing. So, in terms of set pieces, and it probably relates to something we will go on to, is what we did well last year was our set pieces. This year, we're sort of still struggling to find someone to take them. Whereas last year we had Luke Garbett taking them, and that led to, if not directly to goals from free kicks, it led to a lot of lot of goals from headers from his free kicks.
No, we'll come on to Garbett now. In terms of, we always do a section on the show, those who have played for both clubs, whether it's a manager been in charge or players, and we'll start off with Luke Garbett there. Obviously, career at Everton, last year at Ipswich. What kind of player can Blackpool fans expect to see? What type of player can Blackpool fans expect to see from Garbett? He came on a sub last weekend, got a run out in midweek against Accrington in the cup competition. What can Blackpool fans expect? So I know a bit about him, but just for those who don't know, just give us an insight into Luke Garbett. Yeah, well, he's got a very, very nice left foot. As I said, let's think, he probably played 30 odd matches for us last year and scored 6 goals. So he's getting a goal every 5-6 matches, and they were from set pieces, predominantly from set pieces. But he scored in his debut away at Burton for a 1-0 win. Yeah. But as I say, if there's a free kick in and around box, and it's been a long time since we've had a player where you get a free kick on the edge of the box and you pretty much, you're pretty much know that it's either going to hit the wall or end up in the stand. Yeah, he was very, very good at free kicks in and around the box, certainly from direct as well. He's not a left back. And when he joined us on loan, Oxford had him on loan the previous season, and their fans said exactly the same thing, said, you don't want to be playing him left back. He's not a left back. He's more of a left midfielder. And we played him. Occasionally we did play him at left back, but no, he's not a very good defender. He's certainly more of a wing back, left midfielder. But so you can just tell he's just a very, very good footballer. He's not blessed with a lot of pace, but he doesn't waste the ball very often. He won't go round a man and jink it and sprint to the touchline and sling a cross in, but he's just very, very clever and intelligent with the ball. And I say, yeah, very, very dangerous from set pieces. I only caught a glimpse of him last weekend in the game against Lincoln, and he put the left back who started a bit higher up the pitch. Loads of pace, to be fair. Mitchell, I'm guessing you'll see him play tomorrow. And then Garbett came in as a kind of a left back. So it's actually quite surprising hearing you say that he's maybe not predominantly a left back and he's preferred up the field. So it's going to be interesting what the manager sees in him, where he thinks his best position is. But again, I think Blackpool and fans who are listening agree with me, going down the left side with the pace and skill they have now, they look dangerous down both flanks. And it's a shame we can't witness it in the stadium like we spoke about before, but watching tomorrow should be a really interesting game. Whether Garbett starts, I'm not too sure, but it'd be great if he does against one of his former clubs, because I'm sure he'll be right up for it, won't he? Yeah, and so because he's only signed a year's contract, hasn't he, with you guys? Is there any reason as to why that might be? Because he was obviously out of contract in the summer with us, and it was asked, actually, Lambert was asked this week about whether we were interested in getting him, and the answer was pretty much no, because his sights are always set a lot higher than League One. He was aiming for the Championship, basically, to try and get a gig with the Championship team.
And to be fair, he probably is lower half Championship level player. I think he went for talks with Sunderland, but nothing came about then. And as I said about him not being a left back, we were after a left back and ended up getting Stephen Ward, who is just a proper left back. So the system that we're playing this year, in terms of like a 4-3-3, probably doesn't suit Garbett. I have to say he's more of a wing back in a five-man defence, if you like, or a left of a 4-4-2 in the midfield. He's not really going to be one of those guys at the top of the pitch on the left or a left back. But so I'm just interested to see, is it just from his perspective, do you think it's just a stopgap to put himself in the shop window and get a few quid in his pocket for the sake of a year and then look again in the summer?
Oh, potentially. There's always rumours that there's Championship clubs after him. I can understand why. After seeing him with my own eyes last year, I thought he was, as we spoke about, a great technical player. Doesn't have the most pace, but he kind of makes up for that with his ability on set pieces, as you spoke about. But I'm not sure. I'm just got his press release open now from when he joined, and he says, "Pleased to be here. Looking forward to working with Neil Critchley. I like what the head coach had to say, and when I spoke to him a few days ago, he was a big factor in the move." So you look at there and the way that he's maybe brought players on. Does Garbett feel that he can take him to the next step? I don't know, but it's an interesting one whether Blackpool have an option of a third the year. It doesn't say it on the release, but I'm sure if all goes well and Blackpool do well this season, he could be here longer. But potentially, like you said, it could be a move where he just uses it for a stepping stone. And I don't mind that from players. They're here for maybe 2 or 3 years, and Blackpool are that club that have been in the past, brought players in, Matty Phillips, Tom Ince, Charlie Adam, come here for 2 or 3 years, see where we can get to, and we'll let you go at some point for a decent fee. Yeah. But 12 months just seems strange, especially in these uncertain times when you never know what's going to happen in football.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not in fact, I don't think he was short of a few quid after his Everton about 4 or 5 years on about 28 grand a week is going to, you don't need to make any rush decisions after that, do you? But I think he thought he would be settled sooner than he was with you guys. When did he sign? 2 or 3 weeks ago? So I can't imagine he was envisaging still looking for a club in late September, and being where he was based at Everton, he probably hasn't had to move house or worry about anything like that either, is he, with you guys as well? So it's probably just a nice fit for all parties.
Yeah, definitely is. Moving on to other players who have played for both teams. Michael Chopra, Ipswich Town in the 2011 to 2013 season, 78 games and 18 goals. Blackpool, he had 18 matches, 0 goals. Not a great time to remember on the Fylde Coast for Chopra. One for me was looked at, and I forgot he played there, was DJ Campbell. Blackpool 09 to 11 season, obviously the season before they went up, the promotion season and Premier League. 30 goals in 66 games, his first professional hat-trick coming in that famous night in Nottingham, which saw Blackpool reach the playoff final, which ultimately led to them winning promotion to the Premier League. And then Ipswich 2012 to 2013, 10 goals in 17 games. Not a bad stat there from DJ Campbell.
Yeah, definitely. He I think he was at QPR. We got him on loan from QPR, I think, at the time. And Paul Jewell got him on loan, but then I think got the boot pretty soon afterwards. And McCarthy took over in October. So we seem to be getting rid of our managers in October, November time. McCarthy took over in October, and we were rock bottom and like 5 points adrift at the bottom of the Championship. And pretty much Campbell, we're looking at those stats, it backs it up, kept us up. Not single-handedly, but if you were scoring 10 goals in 17 games for a team which is rock bottom of the league, it did an awful lot. When McCarthy joined us, we all of a sudden went on a bit of a surge and were in playoff form pretty much from the time he joined us and sorted out our defence. And a lot of that is down to DJ Campbell. Actually, unfortunately, I don't think they could get the finances to work to get him online permanently, because I think we'd have absolutely loved to have got him here permanently. But again, familiar theme that the McCarthy wasn't particularly back. I think he was on a bit of a silly contract at QPR, to be fair. So we could get him on loan, but couldn't extend the loan or get him in permanently. But no, he had a very, very, very big hand on keeping us up that McCarthy's first season.
Current player in the Blackpool ranks with Garbett is Grant Ward. Obviously, Ipswich 16 to 19 season. 2016 to 2019. Eight goals in 94 games, and been at Blackpool for a year now, playing 5 games in all competitions. Do you know too much about kind of Grant Ward? And I'm not a huge fan of his, to be fair. I don't really know what he offers the side. Doesn't really have the legs for me. But what are your thoughts on Ward?
Yeah,
you remember?
Yeah, similar to you. I think you've summed it up there. You've only seen him 5 times. I saw him 100 times. He joined us from Tottenham, and we probably paid half a million quid for him, 600,000, something like that. And in his first game, he came on as sub. First match of the season, it was. He came on as sub against Barnsley at home and scored a second half hat trick. We won the game. We thought, what the bloody hell have we got here? We've found this diamond in the rough. And they were 3 of the 8 goals he scored in the subsequent 99 matches. As you say, he flatters to deceive a lot. He's just a nice footballer, I suppose, but he doesn't affect games at all. He doesn't score many, as the stats bear out. 8 in 100 matches. He's not the sort of wide player that will trick himself around a player. And as I said earlier about Garbett, he's not going to get to the byline and get a cross in. He just frustrated the hell out of me because he looks like he's got all the talent in the world, but he never really was either brave enough to show it or was coached or told to do it. He was just very safe on the ball, which isn't really what I don't know where he's been playing for you guys, but it's not really what you want from a wide player. You want someone that's going to have shots, get crosses in, take your man on, things like that. But he was just a bit pedestrian, and never really did it for us. And although he pretty much played every match when he was fit, and he was there for 3 years, and he did his cruciate in another injury. He did his cruciate in during his last season, probably around the turn of the year, maybe autumn time, and that's the last we saw of him. He basically was out injured, and we looked after his recovery once he was out of contract, and then joined you guys pretty much when he got fit again. But no, I wasn't a huge fan. I didn't lose any sleep and wasn't crying particularly when he left, because I say he just didn't do enough when he was offered the opportunity.
No, he's been playing more in the midfield 3 with Robson, Anderson, and obviously Ward in midfield. And like I said, very safe on the ball, likes to just go to the full back or the attacking winger. And I'm yet to see anything from him, but maybe he'll surprise me this season when he gets more games under his belt, because I think he was in and out of the side. I can't say too much because I wasn't at many games, but when I saw him, I like you, I wasn't a huge fan. Another player, again, if anyone's listening, they know any players who've been at both clubs, do let us know. But one, and I love this player, to be fair, Luke Varney. Blackpool in 2010, played 30 games for the Seasiders, scoring 5 goals. The one that stands out for me is that absolute rocket shooting towards the south stand at Blackpool, where he's chested it down. I think he's let it bounce once, and it's flown into the top corner. And with that goal, I think it was Prince William or Harry. I think it was William was there in the stands, and he's expecting to get a ticket to his wedding after his goal like that. But a great player, and for you, 5 goals in 43 appearances. He had 3 spells that he had 2 on loan and then joined on a permanent a few months later. But a great player to have on your side, someone who's enthusiastic. It's a good character in the dressing room. Again, he's had a good career, hasn't he?
Yeah, 100%. And he's a textbook Mick McCarthy player, exactly for the reasons that you've given. That he will give 100%. He'll do everything he can in the change room. He'll back everyone up. He won't moan and groan if he's on the bench and not playing. If he comes on for the last 5 minutes, he'll give as much in those 5 minutes as other players would have done in the whole 90 sort of thing. He's got spring in his boots. Crikey, for a relatively short guy, he can jump, can he? The Ipswich fans really, really, really liked him. He scored a couple of last ditch winners and bits and pieces like that, which all sort of endears him to the fans. But yeah, he was one of McCarthy's favourites when he joined. As it shows in the fact he got him back 2 or 3 times. But no, Ipswich fans got nothing but praise, I don't think, for Varney. He's still playing. Is he still around Cheltenham? He wasn't he, last year? I don't know if he's still playing this year.
Oh, I've done my research on when he played for these two. I didn't look at his current club, to be fair. So I'm
sure he
pretty
was
sure
around.
he is still playing. Yeah,
He was around last year, I'm sure.
Great player. And David Linnigan, David Jackson says in. I'm not probably way before my time, but could be.
Now you're aging me there, Sam, by saying it's way before your time. I'm going to say, well, that was right in my prime watching Ipswich Town.
What years would that have been?
He was our captain when we got promoted in 1992 to that first. I was saying about John Lyle.
I wasn't even thought about in '92, to be fair.
Yeah, there's no need for that, is there, Sam? We're having a lovely chat on a Friday evening.
Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, so he was our captain. He was with us like late 80s into the 90s, and as it happens, he is our record Premier League appearance person, you want to call it. So he's made the most Premier League appearances for Ipswich Town. Dave Linnigan, bit of trivia there for you. So yeah, no, he was a limited centre half, shall we say, but perfect for what was Division 2 back then, I suppose. And then I say he played in the Premier League and played when we got beaten 9-0 by Man U.
I'm going to end this show on a little bit as a positive for Blackpool fans. They've been not really won many games this year, just the one against Swindon. Obviously, last time the two sides met, we'll bring it to an end as well, listeners. It's been over an hour. It's flown by, to be fair. A 2-1 victory for Blackpool against Ipswich back in February 2020. Blackpool left it late thanks to a Joe Nuttall header, which beat the keeper after Liam Feeney's cross was put on a sixpence for the now Northampton striker. Great scenes, and what we're going to do is play the key highlights from that game, get your predictions in, so make sure you leave them in the comments section below, and then we'll talk about other games between the two sides. Oh, the scenes. That was the last time I went to watch Blackpool, to be fair. I don't know why Fleetwood had the afternoon off, or might have been international week, and I'm not too sure, but that was a fantastic way to end the game. A striker who's not really had the best season, but comes up with the goods in the end. And what's great is seeing all the Ipswich fans leaving the seats right on the barriers as the ball goes into the channel. Again, you can't beat those memories of fans, can you? When you get that late goal, yes, being on the opposite side is different, but when it's your side and you grinded out a performance with an interim manager in charge, to get that, it's just a great feeling for fans. And like you, I'm guessing we hope we're back in the stadium soon to see moments like that. Yeah,
100%. I think I actually watched that game on a stream which may not have been particularly legal at the time, but you could just tell that was just building towards it, and it was one of those. You can just see it coming from, and it's always the same for opposition fans looking at the other way around, isn't it? You guys are probably thinking, Christ, we could be here all bloody day and not score this, but it just seemed like the momentum was building and the crowd were just getting a bit livelier and livelier, and it just sort of, as you say, a bit of a fairy tale finish, wasn't it?
I think they beat Bolton 2-1 as well in added on time the Tuesday before or Tuesday after. I quite remember. So to have two back-to-back games where they've got 3 points in late on, it was a great. Mick's just said another great pod, great insight into the opposition. Pass my regards to Craig. Seems a great bloke. So great to have you on the show as well. We'll leave that towards the end. But cheers, Mick, for the comment. Appreciate that. Just talking about other games before we go into score predictions. The two sides have met 28 times in league and cup competitions, with the first dating back to 1961. I'm going off soccer base here, so if I'm wrong, please let me know. Where both matches that season finish 1 apiece. We spoke about the game at the Fylde Coast, but down in Suffolk, the game finished 2-2. in November 2019. Edwards put Town ahead with Nuttall scoring 14 minutes later. Jay Spearman put Blackpool ahead from the penalty spot. But it was that man, Blackpool man now, and former Ipswich player Luke Garbett, who scored from the penalty spot to make the game finish 2-2. Do we say you were at that game, the 2-2 draw between Blackpool, or?
Yeah, it was. And as I say, that's sort of the time where things were just starting to tail off for us, and we had a few results similar to that. And to be fair, our home form over the last probably 3 or 4 years has been pretty poor. Our poor old home fans don't have too much to shout about in terms of home wins, really. In the whole scheme of things, it's our away form that's sort of, well, I'd say kept us up, but it hasn't, has it? It's our home form. Should have. If our home form had been better, we wouldn't have been playing League One football. Put it that way. So, yeah, not a surprise. Certainly at that time of year when things were just starting to turn a little bit for us, unfortunately.
Just a quick one. I didn't realise this. Liam Feeney just left Blackpool in the summer to join Tranmere Rovers on loan. He did have a loan spell whilst at Bolton at Ipswich, 2016, 9 appearances, 1 goal. So it's great that listeners get involved, and thanks for the comments there. This is what a show is all about, getting you guys involved. So that's another player who's played for both teams. Score predictions, we're coming close to that 1 hour 15, and I keep saying it needs to be 45 minutes a show. Having too much fun. Your score predictions for this weekend's game, Craig?
I was asked the same on our midweek stream earlier this week. So I went for 2-0 to Ipswich, and that was sort of just more in hope than expectation that as I was saying about last week's result was the blip rather than the start of something more sinister. So I'm sort of hoping that you guys are still finding your feet in terms of the players that you brought in and the style that Critchley's looking to play, and because we've got more of a settled team, a settled formation, and a settled way of playing, that hopefully the injuries that we've got aren't going to make too much of an impact on it. And so fingers crossed for a 2-0 win for us.
Yeah, we had the comments before. Gareth White, obviously, he said he fears tomorrow Blackpool 0, Ipswich 2. Set pieces could be our downfall. John Scott says usually seem to be a lot of goals when the two sides meet. I can see another 3-2. I'd love to say for Blackpool, but with so many new players, we're not quite there yet. Again, I probably agree with John there. It's going to be a close game with a few chances at goal. Whether they result in goals going in, I'm not too sure. Matthew Smith, he says, I think any Pool fan will be happy with a point tomorrow, but I think Ipswich will be too strong for us. 1-0 to Ipswich. Again, a lot of people going in the favour of the away team tomorrow. It's not bad if you're an Ipswich fan, is it?
No, that's right, and I'd just be interested to know, why is that the case, and is it just as I said, just a case of players getting used to Critchley, still getting used to the way that you're having to play, and do you know who's playing centre back tomorrow? Because your man got sent off last week, didn't he? And you say you've sold the other chap to Accrington, so
yeah, it's going to be something. It's going to be interesting whether he's still got Marvin Ekpateta, who got from Leyton Orient in the summer. He'd probably play. So whether he brings in, I think the new guy from Arsenal is on international duty. Whether the Icelandic Grettersson's fit and available, I'm not too sure. Or does he mix up and go? He can't really play 3 at the back because he's got no centre half. So it's going to be interesting. But I just hope that's not an area that it causes problems again. Because last week, 2 penalties, one ended up in a red card. The other one, 2 they slotted away. They're both avoidable. So if you cut those mistakes out, Blackpool go and win 2-0 on the day. But you can't give players those spaces. It's going to be interesting what he goes for tomorrow. I honestly can't give you an honest answer who he's going to pick. So we'll see if Blackpool fans might say who they want in the team. But David Jackson, he says 2-1 to Pool. That's more like it. A bit of positivity inside the chat. Do we read that one? No, we haven't read that one. John Scott's 3-2 to Ipswich, but a better performance is Yates to get his goals, and of course CJ got 2 against Swindon and bags 1 last weekend against Lincoln. Who have we got? One more comment here. Greg Douglas, he's got a draw, 1-1 or 2-1 to Ipswich. And we've also got Seaside Podcast John, who's moaning at me again for the time, says 1 apiece. So, John,
that's my fault, John, for prattling on, mate.
Oh, it's been, once you get chatting though, it's amazing how time flies, really. With the videos as well, it goes way over the 45 minutes, so it's my bad as well. But that's going to be the end of the show. Huge thank you to all the Blackpool fans and Ipswich fans who have joined me and Craig this evening. It's been great to have you on the show, and there will be an audio file for the podcast for you to listen to tomorrow ahead of the game. So if you've missed it tonight or just caught glimpses, there will be one up tomorrow, so you can listen to us two blab on about Ipswich and Blackpool and Paul Lambert and all the fans and stuff. So definitely worth a listen to get involved. Craig, it's been great to have you on, and appreciate your insights. I'm sure Blackpool fans would have learned a lot about Ipswich in this 1 hour 15 we've had on. So a huge thanks. And if you ever need us for something for a pre-match, do get in touch. We'll definitely try and help you out and stuff.
Yeah, pleasure.
No worries, and good luck for the rest. Good luck for the rest of the season. Not tomorrow. Blackpool need the 3 points, unlike Ipswich. But that's enough from us this week. Like I said, a huge thank you to all of our guests. Again, good luck for the season, and the Seaside podcast will be live tomorrow for the 6:06 show around 5:30 p.m. So make sure you're getting tuned. There'll be ways of you to join the podcast and share your views. Last week's was great insight, especially with the raw emotions after the 3-2 defeat. But that's us from now. If you've, like I said before, if you've not subscribed to the Seaside podcast on YouTube, make sure you do that and hit the notification bell so you can see when new videos out, and also follow us on other social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Well, that's all again. Make sure you tune in, but that's enough from us. Can Blackpool go and get 3 points against Ipswich? We'll have to wait and see. See you next Friday.